The Last of Us returns for the last episode of the season. It's the last of Us. Us? Joel and Ellie reach the end of their journey, but is the destination all they expected? I'm Max Lichtig, and join me as we here at Screen Rant end our long journey and break down the season finale from Giraffes to that bloody rampage. And of course, spoilers ahead. I'll bet that if you have never played the game but have been watching the show with someone who has, you've probably been hearing constant references to giraffes with little to no context. Well, the season finale finally gives you some much needed context to all those weirdly ominous rumblings about the African mammals. Starting with Ellie attempting to lower down a ladder for Joel and quickly getting distracted, this sequence is copied almost exactly from the 2013 PlayStation Classic. Even the score is the same, composed by the same Academy Award-winning musician Gustavo Santaolalla. In fact, this track was even previously featured in episode 3 during the final moments of Bill and Frank's marriage. It's a score that symbolizes a bonfire of hope in the darkness of the apocalypse. More on that theme later, by the way, but for now let's also explore this scene and its original inspiration. How do you make this amazing series better and add a little Jurassic Park? Substitute the giraffes with a few brachiosauruses, and you have the same scene from the blockbuster classic. Both scenes share the same themes and motivations, with a gruff man turned father figure providing some comfort and hope to a kid or kids while feeding a long-necked gentle giant some leaves. And Ellie didn't even have to get sneezed on. There's more than one film inspiration behind this scene as well. For creator Neil Druckmann, the idea of zoo animals making a new life in humanity's ruin originally came from the sci-fi mind-bender 12 Monkeys. Druckmann originally contemplated using zebra, but wanted something larger and more awe-inspiring. Also, to those complaining that they are all CGI, well, so are the ones in the video game, so this show is just being faithful. Speaking of being faithful to the show, what's more faithful than using some of the same actors? So far this season, we have had Merle Dandridge reprising her role as Firefly leader Marlene. There's Tommy's voice actor Jeffrey Pierce as Kathleen's right-hand man Perry. Last episode even gave us Joel himself, Troy Baker as a ruthless cannibal. Now this episode, we have Ellie. And hey, she's giving birth to Ellie. And that is called Ellieception. Anna, Ellie's ill-fated mother, is played by voice actress Ashley Johnson. While you definitely know her voice from the 2013 classic and its follow-up, you may recognize her face as Beth, the waitress, in 2012's The Avengers. Johnson's cameo also reveals the source of Ellie's immunity. This is something that's shown in the show for the first time, as the game keeps it more or less a mystery. It turns out that a bite on the thigh at the moment of her daughter's birth meant Ellie had become immunized to the cordyceps. When she was bitten, the fungus didn't progress because, as far as it could tell, the host was already fully infected. Ellie also gained all the fungus's powers, and none of its weaknesses. She becomes a fearsome hunter of the infected, able to move between worlds. A daywalker. Sorry, actually, she just can't get infected. No superpowers. Though, it is fun to think that this teenage girl could have the same origin story as Blade. So now that you've made it this far into the video, it's a perfect time to talk about everyone's favorite subject. Heady themes and metaphors. Wait, don't leave! Here's Kid Slap again!
Kid Slap!
The final moments of the show drives home the season's overall themes, but even its opening scenes help spell out Ellie's journey. When Marlene comes upon Anna and her baby, it's not the best of occasions given that the new mother is moments from turning. She begs Marlene to take her child and keep her safe. She also asks for Marlene to end her suffering. Marlene objects, she protests, and she betrays her friend in more ways than one. We know that Marlene didn't keep Ellie safe. She turned her over to a federal orphanage, the very people she was fighting. Marlene also told Riley that Ellie wasn't welcome in the Fireflies. This might have been about her vow to protect Ellie, or more about how she couldn't face the young woman on a regular basis. The other side is Joel, who has fully accepted Ellie to the point that he is willing to destroy any hope for a cure. From the start of the episode, he is accepting Ellie and opening up to her. He finally opens up about his attempt to end his life days after he lost his daughter. Marlene rejects Ellie and Joel accepts her, which is why Joel gets to drive off into the sunset and Marlene ends up dead on a parking garage floor. Henry and Sam were two characters who weren't around all that long, but they definitely left an impact on the series. The season finale has a few subtle callbacks to the pair and how they have affected Joel's relationship with Ellie. The first comes when Joel is attempting to cheer up a freshly traumatized Ellie. He first shows off his find of a can of Chef Boyardee and then a copy of the word game Boggle. Ellie doesn't seem all that impressed, but she is a little preoccupied. We then see Joel stuff the game into his pack, where it takes a large amount of room. Back in Kansas City, Sam wanted to keep a robot toy he found, but his brother emphasized the importance of storage space and not wasting it on unessential items. Joel has rejected this brutalist method of survival and now knows that entertainment and distraction can be just as essential to survival. It also shows that he is willing to sacrifice that precious space for something that could potentially bring Ellie a little joy. There's also more context added to their death and Joel's reaction to it. Joel talks about how he put a gun to his head and tried to end the pain of his recent loss. He flinched and ended up with a nasty scar. When Sam is bitten and dies, Henry does the same with far more success, right in front of Joel. This came right after Joel and Ellie first started to bond over terrible puns and shared trauma, the key to any successful relationship. This is why Joel recoils from Ellie and begins to have panic attacks in the next episode. He was forced to relive the darkest moment from his past and was worried losing Ellie would mean the same for him. The final episode has done an amazing job of tying every theme in the series together, including... Okay, this is the last entry about themes, I promise. As another showrunner once said, themes are for 8th grade book reports, and if you want the best take on themes, it's from the guy that ran Game of Thrones into the ground. In the final scene of the show, Joel tells Ellie that survival is about moving forward. He says that when you lose someone or something important, going on is about finding something else that needs you. This theme has been reinforced throughout the series. After Joel lost Sarah, he found Tess. Together they spent the next decade or so carving out a living in the new world. Joel was so fiercely protective of her that Robert was terrified of him seeing her all bruised up. When he lost Tess, Joel found Ellie, and we all know how that turned out. The same is true of Frank and Bill, who stole everyone's hearts back in episode 3. The pair were left alone in the post-Mushroom America until they found each other. In his note to Joel, Bill talks about the importance of finding someone to protect and the purpose it brings. Without spoiling the second game, this is a theme that is likely to be carried over into the next season. Hey, speaking of that, so the show has officially been renewed for a second season. Even a clicker could see that that was really never going to be in doubt. The show is already a massive success, and it's being discussed over water coolers everywhere. However, the first season covered the entire first game, so there's a little bit of a problem. The Last of Us 2 for the PlayStation takes place a number of years after the first game, with a far older Ellie taking the place of Joel as the main playable character. Given that Bella Ramsey can't age 6 years before shooting starts in the summer, what will they do? Showrunner Craig Mazin has discussed this, if a little vaguely.
We're ready to go and dive into more of the world of The Last of Us, no question.
Saying that The Last of Us 2 is so dense that it would require a few seasons. However, both Mazin and Druckmann have been silent on where else the series could go. It's possible that season 2 may expand into telling a story about the intervening 7 years between 1 and 2. We will all just have to wait and see. Joel is far kinder and more open in this episode. To Ellie, that is. He's still a cold-blooded monster when it comes to those that threaten him and his. The season as a whole has given us a look at Joel and how he's portrayed in live action by Pedro Pascal, and one of the things that stands out is his ice-cold demeanor when it comes to finishing off his enemies. Time and time again has shown that Joel doesn't have time for one-liners or even pre-knifing banter. If he decides that he's going to end you, he doesn't even say a word. When he finished off the young man who nearly strangled him, he didn't say anything as he stabbed the begging man in the heart. This episode shows a similar moment when he runs out of bullets and uses Ellie's knife to take down an already shot attacker. He also has no time when it comes to those who are at his mercy. When he took the 2 cannibals hostage, he tortured one and kept the other as a backup. When he got what he wanted, he wordlessly stabbed one and then hit the other with a pipe. Again, we see that at play in the final attack when he shoots a surrendering soldier and even executes Marlene in the basement. He doesn't even look at the doctor he shoots as well, instead keeping his eyes focused on Ellie the entire time. It's a way of showing how Joel both understands the finality of death and cares little about it. The Last of Us has ended its first season, and what a season it was. Managing to be incredibly faithful to its source material, the show also delivered one of the most exciting and emotional dramas in decades. With everything seemingly wrapped up in a rather bloody bow, the series has shown that video game adaptations can be high art.